At first, it was nothing more than an ordinary moment, the kind that happens every day without leaving a mark. Two people standing in the same place at the same time, unaware that this small intersection of paths would matter later. They were strangers, carrying their own thoughts, their own worries, their own invisible histories. There was no expectation, no intention, and certainly no idea that something meaningful was quietly beginning to take shape. The connection did not announce itself loudly. It arrived in a glance that lingered a second longer than necessary, in a shared silence that felt oddly comfortable. Something about the moment stood out, even though neither of them could explain why. It wasn't attraction in the dramatic sense, nor was it instant understanding. It was simply a feeling that this encounter was different from all the others they would forget by the next day. In that brief interaction, there was an unspoken awareness. They noticed small details without trying. The calmness in each other's presence, the way the world seemed to slow down for a heartbeat. Even without words, there was a sense of recognition, as if their paths had crossed before in another life or in a dream neither could quite remember. This subtle pull didn't demand attention, but it refused to be ignored. What made the moment meaningful was its simplicity. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic confessions, just a quiet exchange of space and time. And yet, that simplicity allowed something genuine to form. It felt real because it wasn't forced. It wasn't shaped by expectations or plans. It existed purely in the moment, free from pressure, which made it easy to hold on to later. As they walked away, both carried the encounter with them, even if they didn't fully realize it yet. The memory lingered softly, resurfacing in unexpected ways. A familiar feeling of warmth would return, a curiosity about the stranger whose presence had felt oddly significant. It wasn't obsession or longing, just a gentle awareness that something had shifted. This is how meaningful connections often begin, not with certainty, but with curiosity, not with promises, but with possibility. A chance meeting has the power to open a door inside the heart, even if it doesn't step through it right away. That first moment planted a seed, one that didn't demand attention, but waited patiently to grow. Over time, when they met again, that initial spark made sense. The feeling they couldn't name found its explanation. What once seemed like a passing moment revealed itself as the beginning of something deeper. The chance meeting wasn't random after all. It was the quiet start of a story waiting to unfold after their first meeting. Life continued as usual, yet something subtle had changed beneath the surface. Neither of them actively searched for the other, but somehow their paths kept crossing, as if guided by an invisible hand. Each encounter felt accidental, yet too perfectly timed to be dismissed as coincidence. It was as though the world had decided to place them in the same spaces, gently reminding them of that quiet connection they had both carried away from their first meeting. They began noticing familiar details before they noticed the meetings themselves. The same street corner at the same hour, the same cafe filled with the comforting hum of conversation, the same park bench bathed in evening light. At first, these moments felt surprising, followed by soft smiles and unspoken acknowledgement. With each repeated meeting, the sense of unfamiliarity slowly faded, replaced by a growing comfort that neither had expected so soon. What made these encounters special was the ease that came with them. There was no awkwardness, no forced conversation. Words flowed naturally, and silences felt warm rather than heavy. They started sharing small pieces of their lives, nothing too personal at first, just enough to feel closer than strangers. These simple exchanges built a foundation of trust, formed not by effort, but by time and presence. As fate continued to weave their paths together, curiosity deepened into something gentler and more meaningful. They found themselves looking forward to these unexpected meetings, even if they never admitted it aloud. Each coincidence added another layer to their connection, making it harder to believe that chance alone was responsible. It felt as though the universe was quietly encouraging them to pay attention. With every encounter, comfort grew. They learned each other's rhythms, the way one laughed softly, the way the other listened with full attention. Familiarity settled in, easing any lingering doubts. What once felt like two separate lives brushing past each other now felt like two stories slowly intertwining. Without realizing it, they began to seek each other's presence, finding reassurance in its consistency. These repeated moments taught them something important, that closeness doesn't always begin with intention. Sometimes it grows through shared space and time, through moments that feel ordinary but carry deeper meaning. Fate didn't rush them or force their connection. It allowed it to unfold naturally, letting comfort replace distance and familiarity replace uncertainty. By the time they understood what was happening, the connection was already there, quietly strong. The repeated coincidences had done their work, turning strangers into companions without pressure or expectation. What felt like fate was simply the patient unfolding of two lives, learning how to belong near each other. Love did not arrive all at once, nor did it demand immediate recognition. It grew slowly, almost unnoticed, shaped by shared moments and gentle understanding rather than dramatic declarations. What began as simple familiarity gradually deepened into something warmer, something that felt natural rather than forced. Neither of them set out to fall in love. It happened quietly, in the spaces between conversations, in the comfort they found in each other's presence. As time passed, their connection evolved without pressure. There was no rush to define what they were becoming, no fear of moving too slowly or too quickly. They allowed their bond to develop at its own pace, guided by trust rather than expectation. This freedom made their feelings feel safe. Love became something they stepped into willingly, not something they were pushed toward by circumstance or desire. Their conversations grew more meaningful, touching on dreams, fears, and hopes they hadn't easily shared with others. Listening became an act of care, and understanding became a form of affection. Through these exchanges, they discovered how deeply they connected, not just in shared interests, but in values and emotion. Each moment of honesty strengthened the bond between them, turning comfort into closeness. The beauty of their love lay in its simplicity. There were no grand promises made too soon, no dramatic turning points that defined everything at once. Instead, love revealed itself through consistency, the way they showed up for each other, the way they made space for one another's thoughts and feelings. This steady presence built a foundation that felt real and lasting. Without realizing it, they began to imagine a future where the other naturally belonged, not because they planned it, but because it felt right. Love became an extension of their everyday lives, woven into routines and shared moments. It didn't disrupt their worlds, it complemented them. What they felt was not overwhelming, but grounding. This gradual growth made their love resilient. It was shaped by patience, mutual respect, and a deep sense of ease. Falling in love didn't feel like losing control. It felt like coming into alignment with something that had been quietly forming all along. Their hearts recognized what their minds took time to understand. In the end, love felt inevitable, yet gentle. It was not something that appeared suddenly, but something that had been unfolding with every shared moment, every coincidence, every quiet connection. What began as strangers crossing paths became a bond rooted in understanding and care, growing naturally into love that felt both unexpected and perfectly timed.